a few months ago. And when I say I went Wakanda, I mean I shaved. Hey, welcome back to the Super Tea Podcast Show. Give me a second, guys, over here in TikTok world. So my technology wanted to let me know that it needed an update in the middle of my broadcast, and I had to start this broadcast over. But luckily, we did not start reading the book yet. It is Super. It is the Super Tea Podcast channel, and it is Soulful Sunday. But I'm gonna just briefly talk about Harvest Time because Harvest Time was phenomenal for me. So let's start all the way back, the real beginning of the year in March, spring equinox, right? So much was going on. I was like at the end of my semester at that time. That semester was very challenging because I had a loved one that I was assisting, and I was so like micromanaging them, and they were dealing with a lot of different challenges, plus navigating class and school, college, and on top of just basic studies, which can be challenging within themselves as a returned student. Now, I may look young in the face, keep on looking young in the face. But let me get up. You'll quickly know that I'm not as young as I look, okay? And that's temporary. That is not going to be the case next year this time, okay? I'll be looking young, feeling young, and moving young, okay? But right now it's a work in progress. This is why these diaphragms is here, because I had to learn more about this body so that I can get this body where it needs to be, and I had to recognize I need assistance with getting it there. So I'm doing chiropractic, and I'm doing physical therapy, and that's on top of my schoolwork, and work study, and dealing with politics and different dynamics and different personalities. So it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's a lot of goodness because I put some work in with my cafe, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. Stay tuned. If you're not following me on my other platforms, please do, because those other platforms are sharing what's happening in those different areas of my life. But there's so many different areas, and so back to the Wakanda. Going Wakanda basically means I shaved my head. I shaved my head twice. 2025, I shaved my head twice. I shaved it in the beginning, in the new fiscal year. I shaved it off, and then I shaved it the new actual year, March, right? So it was bald. It was completely bald. Completely bald. I have not been using the stuff that they have been advertising yet, but I did order me some because I want to see. Because this is just welcome in King Simba. I'm just talking about the harvest time and just how this harvest season has been so amazing for me and for my family. And, that's what I'm doing before I jump into the book. So thank you. We will be reading from this book, the chapter where we left off at, from last week's Soulful Sunday. But I appreciate the taps. Thank you, brother. Tap, and tap me up. Tap a sister up. Because I just be in here doing my episode. I shoot my episode, and then I keep it moving. Sometimes people come in. Sometimes people don't, And they be like, "Ooh, what's she talking about?" But anyway, back to how I went Wakanda. That's when you came in on me talking about going Wakanda. And YouTube, just bear with me because I'm talking to both platforms at the same time. You see me looking to the side, I'm talking to my YouTube audience. And you see me looking up YouTube, I'm talking to my TikTok audience. I'll be switching though, my eyes and everything. Pretty good for one person that's no camera person, right? Because the cameras be showing different angles and stuff. Anyway, so yeah, I went Wakanda. I have been doing nothing to it. I did braid it up and like put some I did like do a crochet style, like a protective style. I did do that, but nothing else. And from Wakanda to this in a few months, in my 40s, I'ma see. I got this stuff. I ordered the baskin, what they call it, the baskin. Goodness gracious. I've ordered the stuff that all of the sisters have been advertising. So we gonna see, because one sister said she got 6 inches in 6 weeks. I'm like, okay. let me see. Y'all got a sale, 40%. Let me see. There you go, basket lather. Thank you, King. Let me see. Let me see if it's really true. Let's see. Let me be another victorious person about it. Okay. So yeah, so that is one thing. My space is organized. Like it does make a big, huge difference. Now there is still work to do because I gotta go and deep into the closets and go through stuff and see what I'm gonna keep, see what I'm gonna throw away as far as clothes and things of that sort. But everything is organized, and I did go into one closet and do a deep cleaning, and where everything is organized in the closet. So everything is organized. My office space is organized. My living room space is organized. My kitchen space is organized. My bedroom is organized. I'm just like, who's this new person? Who am I? Things are coming to me. Like when I say coming to me, and I gotta give a shout out to the sister. Her name is Sister Yvette Booker. She is an elder and a priestess and a sage. And when I saw her, she just seemed so familiar. And I'm very particular. I'm a spiritual sister myself. 9 out of 10 times I go straight to the divine. But I also am a creative. And I have to, accept the fact that I'm a creative as well as a spiritual sister. So what that means for me, and particularly, is because I am a creative, I can create things very quickly. And I need to have confirmation that the things I am creating are in alignment with what divine wants and has for me. So, because I don't want to be overstepping any boundaries, okay? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'll be like, oh, I'm in my own space. I can do what I want. Yes. But when it comes to energy and metaphysics, metaphysics deals with more than just the physical, and energy work is more than just what you see when you're dealing with energy, which we deal with all the freaking time. But we have to be conscious on how we deal with it. For example, I had a situation. This is going to be a little TMI, but I'm going to share it, with you because this is my platform, right? I had a situation where someone that I admire, right? I was, thinking of them privately in my private thoughts in my private space. Privately. And, I know that our thoughts are so powerful that when we think of a person, we're literally sending that individual our energy, right? And vice versa, right? So when sometimes people just randomly come to your mind, it's because they are thinking about you, right? It's how energy works, right? So I'm thinking about this person again in my private space and my private thoughts, privately. And I send, hey, Cozy, I'm just having a chit chat about how good harvest time has been and just talking about an experience very briefly before I go into the book. I haven't started yet. I don't know if you're going to stick around for it, but if you do, cool. Anyway, so I'm again in my private space and my private thoughts having, but I know if I'm choosing to think about this individual, that my energy is going to flow to them, okay? And so some of my energy flows to them. Now, I don't know how they receive it. I just know the results. Now, it wasn't the first time that this occurrence has happened, but I know the results after this particular time. And after this particular time, the results was, I didn't like the results, they weren't favorable. I got actually pissed off with the results, because I have to actually interact with this person a lot. And I was just like, the way they responded to me, it wasn't like they responded to me. I didn't like it. I'm just gonna put it like that. So for me, it was like, okay, hold up, let me check myself, because even though, yeah, you feel like you have liberties to do what you want to do in your spaces, and you do, but when you are involving other people, you have to be mindful, especially if they're sensitive. You may think, oh, this person won't even, know what's going on. I think this person felt all of that energy that I sent, and I don't know whether they appreciate it or not. I just know how they responded to me, and their response angered me. And and so we had a disagreement, and yeah, that was that. So it just makes me mindful. So back to, shout out to Yvette Booker. I'm gonna sit down with Yvette Booker and have a conversation, so that she's unbiased. She's unbiased, and she can get, she's somebody that I feel in my spirit that is trustworthy, that can get from the spirit what I need to know in regards to that particular individual. And so that's that. I don't know why I wanted to share that. It just came on my mind, and I just wanted to share it. I don't know who it's going to be helpful for, but I think we do need to be conscientious of how energy works and be mindful of our thoughts, regardless, because we are literally that powerful. So, with no further ado, I'm going to jump in to, girl, you see my Wakanda though? She see me go Wakanda. I'm sorry, I just had to shout out. That's my little home girl there. Girl, I went Wakanda, and now I got a baby fro, and I haven't even been putting nothing in it. Like, girl. I can't wait till my fro is really like hefty, as I really am going for it to go. Anyway, we are jumping into chapter 3. Overcoming Your Body. We are reading from Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, which is a book by Dr. Joe Dispenza. He is a wonderful neuroscientist, but also metaphysician as well. So imagine that. Imagine going to school, getting your doctorate degree in the traditional way, but then going deeper into sacred sciences and balancing out man's knowledge with knowledge of spirit, and like marrying those two knowledges together, and then serving the world. Like, that's what this brother does. He has retreats, so you can tap in, and I suggest that you do. But nonetheless, there's an opportunity for you to tap in through me. Let me get to the chapter and start reading the book, because I do got other stuff to do today. I do have school tomorrow. Okay, chapter 3, Overcoming Your Body. No one thinks in a vacuum. I love it. I love the alignments. I'm going to continue reading, but I love the alignments. I love how spirit works and talks through me. And then I pick up this book because I do not prep for this. Soulful Sunday is straight from the soul. Now, eventually, when this is an actual TV show, there's going to be preparatory things that happen, because those are things that happen when you're launching and producing and broadcasting an actual television show. But at this point in time, it is in its rawest form, where I literally took a nap. Like a power nap, and got up at like 2:45 and was like, oh, I gotta put clothes on. And as you can see, my clothing is a pajama top. That's what I did. That was my preparation. So I don't know what the chapter is going to say until I pick it up and I read it with you. I just say what's on my mind, and then when I start and I'll be like, wow, the first sentence is no one thinks in a vacuum, I'm just like, I just was talking about thoughts. Let's get into the book though. No one thinks in a vacuum. Every time you have a thought, there is a biochemical reaction in the brain. You make a chemical. As you'll learn, the brain then releases specific chemical signals to the body, where they act as messengers of the thought. That's your nervous system. That's it. When the body gets these chemical messages from the brain, it compiles instantly by initiating a matching set of reactions directly in alignment with what the brain is thinking. Then the body immediately sends a confirming message back up to the brain that it's now feeling exactly the way the brain is thinking. To understand this process, how you typically think equal to your body, and how to form a new mind, you first need to appreciate the role that your brain and its chemistry plays in your life. In the last few decades, we've discovered that the brain and the rest of the body interact via powerful electrochemical signals. I told you he was a neuroscientist, right? This, there rather, is an extensive chemical factory between our ears, our brain, that orchestrates a myriad of bodily functions. But relax, this is going to be Brain Chemistry 101, and a few terms are all you need to know. All cells have receptor sites on their exterior surface that receives information from outside their boundaries. A match in chemistry, frequency, and electrical charge becomes a receptor site and an incoming signal from the outside. The cell gets turned on to perform certain tasks. Oh, Lord. They just had to say that word, turned on. And there's a small diagram of a cell and how a cell works. I don't know if this is showing it clearly, but yeah. This is the nucleus, I believe, is in the middle. Oh, that's the DNA. Yep. Oh, can you tell I love science? I love science. The nucleus is in the middle. This is the whole cell. That little part right here is like a receptor site. It's a little indentation. Again, this is a diaphragm. It probably, the way it exactly looks is different, obviously. And it receives signals. So the signal has to fit for it to be receptive to it, right? Let's continue. So that was figure 3A. It's a cell with receptor sites that receives vital incoming information from outside of the cell. The signal can influence the cell to perform myriad biological functions. Wonderful. I'm going to pause here because I was having a conversation with an intellectual, and I was just telling them, I have to fix something. Not that it's broken, but I have to learn how not to react. Not to react to somebody's energy, and or to react more I don't know what's the proper terminology. So I'm gonna back up, I'm gonna rewind. There's an individual whose energy my energy is very receptive to, and that's not a bad thing, but it's becoming a little it's been uncomfortable. I ain't gonna act like it's been comfortable. I have just been enjoying the reactions, but they're not as enjoyable anymore because I haven't been around them for a bit, but that's not the point. They haven't been enjoyable because recently, because it's getting more intense. It's getting more like it's weird to describe it, but that's what's happening. So I mentioned to this intellectual I was having a conversation with yesterday that I gotta fix this. I have to take care. I have to be responsible for me. This temple, this vessel is mine, and I notice. Okay, it's having a reaction, but what am I gonna do about this reaction that it's having? I need to get it to be, I guess, conditioned to where it's not having this reaction. And that will make the interactions better or more comfortable, I should say. And I think we'll make it more comfortable for us both because I really feel that it's it's an ebb and flow. So it's interesting how they're talking about a cell. Of course, they're talking very micro when it comes to the human body. And I'm talking macro because it'd be macro. It'd be like, it don't be like, oh, just one cell is like, ooh, receptive. We've just received a signal here. All the cells be like, signals on. I'd be like, oh. No lie, people. No one sees it. Because most of the time I'm sitting down. I'm already like in a comfortable a space that I try my best to make comfortable. They're like, take your shit out of here. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the book. But this book is explaining what's happening. It's just simply a chemical reaction. So I need to remind myself this. When it happens, this is just a chemical reaction. This is just chemical reactions. It's just your neurotransmitters picking up on this energy. That's all that it is, Takara. Don't turn on your creative brain, because my creative brain is always on, but don't let it be at 1,000 volumes, decibels, right? Don't let my creativity be at 1,000 decibels where it's like, oh, I've gotten this chemical reaction. What does it mean? What can I do with it? I've already written a whole book, and the book is part of a trilogy. So I guess I could do a lot with it, but I still have to remind myself where to point my creativity at. It's like, okay, boom, I'm having a chemical reaction. Be mindful. Okay, now what do I do with this chemical reaction? Okay, I'm going to focus my creativity not on the individual that is sparking the chemical reaction. I'm going to focus my creativity into another direction. I'm putting it out there. I'm programming myself right now in front of you guys. That's why I said it so many times. Let's get back to the book though. Neurotransmitters, neuropeptides, and hormones. Are you over 40? Are you over 40? That word, that H word. I guess I'm the only one, but I know I'm not the only one because I've heard other females and they're like, you thought you were something in your 20s? This is how women be that in their 60s and stuff be talking. You thought you were something in your 20s? Wait till 50. And I'm just like, what's going to happen at 50? Ladies, please tell me. Oh, your hormones, that drive that you had at 20. Oh, it's about to really enhance. And when it enhances, especially with all your knowledge and the skills that you have acquired along the way, ooh, be prepared. So yeah, mine's is happening now. Mine's kicked into gear at 40. Like, I was happy to embrace 40 and I was just like, okay, yay, I made it. My body was like, and I was like, whoa. What's happening, body? What's I was like, oh, hold up, wait a minute. Don't be rooming like that. Wait a minute now. We gotta get you evenly yoked before you could just be rooming like that, body. Anyway, I'm sorry. That word hormones is a trigger word for me, okay? Let's get back to the book. I'm gonna start that sentence over again because I went all the way left, right? Let's get it back together. Neurotransmitters, neuropeptides, and hormones are the cause and effect chemicals for brain activity and bodily functioning. These three types of chemicals, called ligands, not leggings like the spandex you put on. Ligands. The word is a Latin word, legare, meaning to bind. They connect to, interact with, or influence the cell in the matter of milliseconds, which explains a lot. Explains a lot. Explains a whole lot. And then we go deeper into this. Remember, this is Chemistry of the Brain 101 in this particular chapter. Thank you for tapping, girl. Appreciate you. Neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that primarily send signals between nerve cells, allowing the brain and nervous system to communicate. There are different types of neurotransmitters, and each is responsible for a particular activity. Some excite the brain, others slow it down, while others make us sleepy or awake. They can tell a neuron to unhook from its current connection or make it stick better to its present connection. They can even change the message as it is being sent to a neuron, rewriting it so that a different message is delivered to all the connected nerve cells. Woo! These bodies are complex and beautiful. Neuropeptides. The second type of ligand makes up the majority of these messages. Most are manufactured in a structure of the brain called the hypothalamus. Recent studies show that our immune system also makes them. These chemicals are passed through the pituitary gland, which then releases a chemical message to the body with specific instructions. As neuropeptides make their way through the bloodstream, they attach to the cells of various tissues, primarily glands, and turn on the third type of ligand, hormones, my trigger word, which further influences us to feel certain ways. Neuropeptides and hormones are the chemical responsible for our feelings. For our purposes, think of neurotransmitters as chemical messengers, primarily from the brain and mind. Neuropeptides as chemical signalers that serve as a bridge between the brain and the body to make us feel the way we think, and hormones as the chemicals related to feelings primarily in the body. And for example, they have another diagram in here of the brain. Oops, can you see? Overview of the role of the brain. Let's get in the ligands. So you can see the word that I'm saying, ligands. It sounds like leggings, right? But no, it's ligands. That's the word. That's the brain. Hold up. I mirrored the video on here. I'm going to just go back though into it. So these are the different glands. We have the pituitary gland, the pineal gland. The pituitary gland is in the back, huh? Yeah. The pineal gland, the thyroid gland, the thymus gland, the adrenal gland, the digestive gland, and the sexual glands. Ooh, those root chakras. Oh, my root chakras. Oh, my God. Neurotransmitters are diverse chemical messengers between neurons. Neuropeptides are chemical couriers that signal different glands of the body to make hormones. For example, when you have a sexual fantasy, I don't know why that tickled me so much, because I literally talked about it before I got here. That's why it tickled me. For example, when you have a sexual, that's what I was saying when I was like private. I was in my own private thoughts, my own private space, thinking privately. Well, the book has said it. The book say, you ain't low. You ain't about to be low. You about to be shining bright, everything. Just everything just shining bright. It's just like, oh, it's hello, my business world. That's what we doing, all right? I'm not ashamed. But I said I've been abstinent. That don't mean that I have not been engaging with myself. I may have to engage with myself more often. Maybe that's how I fix this. Even though I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to try and see. I just have to think about something outside of one particular person. I got to put my mind somewhere else when I do that. Like, anyway, let's get back to the book. For example, when you when you've had a sexual fantasy, all three of these factors are called to action. First, as you start to think a few thoughts, your brain whips up some neurotransmitters that turn on a network of neurons, which create pictures in your mind. These chemicals then stimulate the release of a specific neuropeptides into your bloodstream. It's my fault. This is what this book is telling me. It's my fault. Why I even react to them like that? It's possible. It's possible. It's my fault. I gotta stop having them in my fantasies. Once you reach your sexual glands, those peptides bind to the cells of those tissues. They turn on your hormonal system, and presto, that's the words of the book, presto, things start happening. You've made your fantasy thoughts so real in your mind that your body starts to get prepared for an actual sexual experience ahead of the event. Ooh, juicy. You know very well who you are. Don't let them hold you down. Reach for the stars. You have down, but let them ignite. And I'll give you good and plenty juicy fruit. Juicy. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop. We'll get back to the book. That's how powerfully mind and body are related. By the same means, if you start to think about confronting your teenager over the new dent in the car, your neurotransmitters would start the thought process in your brain to produce a specific level of mind. Your neuropeptides would chemically signal your body in a specific way, and you would begin to feel a bit riled up. As the peptides find their way to your adrenal glands, they would then be prompted to release the hormones adrenaline and cortisol. And now you are definitely feeling fired up. Chemically, your body is ready for battle. The thinking and feeling loop. As you think different thoughts, your brain circuits fire in corresponding sequences, patterns, and combinations, which then produce level of mind equal to those thoughts. Once these specific networks of neurons are activated, the brain produces specific chemicals with the exact signature to match those thoughts so that you can feel the way you were just thinking. Therefore, when you have great thoughts or loving thoughts or joyous thoughts, you produce chemicals that make you feel great or loving or joyful. The same holds true if you have negative, fearful, or impatient thoughts. In a matter of seconds, you begin to feel negative or anxious or impatient. There's a certain synchronicity that takes place moment by moment between the brain and the body. In fact, as we begin to feel the way we are thinking, because the brain is in constant communication with the body, we begin to think the way we are feeling. The brain constantly monitors the way the body is feeling. Based on the chemical feedback it receives, it will generate more thoughts that produce chemicals corresponding to the way the body is feeling, so that we first begin to feel the way we think, and then to think the way we feel. Cycle of I did not go far, but I had to go to the restroom really quick because I was talking, and you know it's flu season, people. Now, I'm grateful that I have been taking natural supplements and things of that sort to make sure that if any bug tries to come up in this body, when I say bug, I'm talking about germ, obviously, that my body be on it. So, thank goodness, no sniffles, but, you know, just chemically, we're talking about how the body works, right? So, chemically, when there is a pathogen or like the cold or whatever, those foreign things, which your body does, it goes and it starts attacking those things. Your immune system attacks those things, and then it forms a phlegm, and then the phlegm comes out of your body because it has killed it. So that's what happened. I was talking, and then, some phlegm got it, and I was like, I'm not about to swallow this thing. I'm about to go spit this shit out. And there was nowhere to spit it nearby, so I got up to spit it out. Let's get back into the book, though. Cycle, there's another diaphragm. I believe this one is figure 3C. Cycle of thinking and feeling. I like his little stick figure. So, the thoughts, the feelings, they're all interconnected. Thoughts of the brain plus feelings of the body equals your state of being. The neurochemical relationship between the brain and the body. As you think certain thoughts, the body produces chemicals that causes you to feel exactly the way you were thinking. Once you feel the way you think, you begin to think the way you feel. This continuous cycle creates a feedback loop called a state of being. We will delve deeper into this idea throughout the book, but consider that thoughts are primarily related to the mind and the brain, and feelings are connected to the body. Therefore, as the feelings of the body align to thoughts from a particular state of mind and body are now working together as one. And as you recall, when the mind and body are in unison, the end product is called a state of being. We could also say that the process of continuously thinking and feeling and thinking creates a state of being, which produces effects on our reality. A state of being means we have become familiar with a mental emotional state, a way of thinking and a way of feeling, which has become an integral part of our self-identity. And so we describe who we are by how we are thinking and thus feeling or being in the present moment. I'm angry, I'm suffering, I'm inspired, I'm insecure. I'm none of those things. I'm just reading the book. But it's giving an example of how when you're thinking and feeling a way, how you literally become that. You know, so if you're thinking negatively about yourself or about a situation and you're feeling negative, so thinking and feeling both negative about a situation, then that's going to be your experience of whatever the situation is. I'm going to go back into the book. Years of thinking certain thoughts and then feeling the same way and then thinking equal to those feelings, the hamster on a wheel, creates a memorized state of being in which we can emphatically declare our I am statement as an absolute. That means we're now at the point when we define ourselves as this state of being. Our thoughts and feelings have merged. For example, we have said, I always have been lazy, or I am an anxious person, or I'm typically uncertain of myself, I have worthiness issues, I'm short-tempered and impatient, I'm really not that smart, and so on. Again, that's me reading the book. I am none of those things. Nor do I think I'm any of those things. I think I'm quite phenomenal and fantastic and evolving and beautiful and scrumptious and delicious. That's just what I think of me. But let's get back to the book. Um, when feelings become the means of thinking, or if we cannot think greater than how we feel, then we can never change. To change is to think greater than how we feel. To change is to act greater than the familiar feelings of the memorized self. It is to be greater than the body. As a practical example, let's say you're driving to work this morning and you begin to think about the heated encounter you had a few days ago with a coworker. As you think the thoughts associated with that person and that particular experience, your brain starts releasing chemicals that circulate through your body. Very quickly, you begin to feel exactly the way you were thinking. You probably become angry. Your body sends a message back to your brain saying, "Yep, I'm feeling really ticked off." Of course, your brain, which is constantly communicating with the body and monitors its internal chemical order, is influenced by the sudden change in the way you're feeling. As a result, you begin to think differently. The moment you begin to feel the way you begin to think the way you feel. You unconsciously reinforce the same feeling by continuing to think angry and frustrated thoughts, which then make you feel more angry and frustrated. In effect, your feelings are now controlling your thinking. Your body is driving your mind. As the cycle goes on, your angry thoughts produce more chemical signals to your body, which activates the adrenal chemical associated with your angry feelings. Now you have become enraged and aggressive. You feel flushed. Your stomach is twisted into a knot. Your head pounds and your muscles start to clench. As all those heightened feelings flood the body and change its psychology, its physiology. This chemical cocktail fires up a certain set of circuits in the brain, causing you to think equal to those emotions. Now you're telling your associate off 10 different ways in the privacy of your own mind. You indignantly conjure up a litany of past events that validate your present upset, brainstorming through a letter recounting all those complaints you've always wanted to lodge. In your mind, you've already forwarded to your boss before you even arrive at work. You exit the car dazed and crazed and a breath away from homicidal. Dang! Hello, walking, talking model of an angry person. And all of this started with a single thought. In this moment, it seems impossible to think greater than you feel. And that's why it's hard to change. The result of this cyclic communication between your brain and body is that you tend to react predictably to these kinds of situations. You create patterns of the same familiar thoughts and feelings. You unconsciously behave in automatic ways, and you are mirrored in these routines. This is how the chemical you functions. Does your mind control your body, or does your body control your mind? Why is it so hard to change? Imagine that your mother loved to suffer, and through long observation, you unconsciously saw that this behavior pattern enabled her to get what she wanted in life. Let's also say that you've had a few tough experiences in your own life, which created quite a bit of suffering for you. Those memories still elicit an emotional reaction centered around a specific person at a particular place at a certain time in your life. You've thought about the past often enough, and somehow those memories are easy to recall, even automatic. Now imagine that for more than 20 years, you've practiced thinking and feeling and thinking about suffering. Actually, You no longer need to think about the past event to create the feeling. You can't seem to think or act any other way than how you always feel. You've memorized suffering by your recurrent thoughts and feelings, those related to that incident as well as other events in your life. Your thoughts about yourself in your life tend to be colored by feelings of victimization and self pity. Repeating the same thoughts and feelings you've courted for more than 20 years has conditioned your body to remember the feelings of suffering without much conscious thought. This seems so natural and normal now. It's who you are. And anytime you try to change anything about yourself, it's like the role turns back on you. You right back to your old self. What most people don't know is that when they think about a highly charged emotional experience, they make the brain fire in the same exact sequences and patterns as before. They are firing and wiring their brains to the past by reinforcing those circuits into ever more hardwired networks. They also duplicate the same chemicals in the brain and body in varying degrees, as if they were experiencing the event again in that moment. Those chemicals begin to train the body to further memorize the emotion, both the chemical results of thinking and feeling and thinking, as well as the neurons firing and wiring together, condition the mind and the body into a finite set of automatic programs. We are capable of reliving a past event over and over, perhaps thousands of times in one lifetime. It is this unconscious repetition that trains the body to remember that emotional state equal to or better than the conscious mind does. When the body remembers better than the conscious mind, that is, when the body is the mind, that's called a habit. Psychologists tell us that by the time we're in our mid 30s, our identity or personality will be completely formed. This means that for those of us over 35, we have memorized a select set of behaviors, attitudes, beliefs, emotional reactions, habits, skills, associative memories, conditioned responses, and perceptions that are now subconsciously programmed within us. Those programs are running us because the body has become the mind. This means that we will think the same thoughts, feel the same feelings, react in identical ways, behave in the same manner, believe the same dogmas, and perceive reality the same way. About 95% of who we are by midlife is a series of subconscious programs that have become automatic. Driving a car, brushing our teeth, overeating when we're stressed, worrying about our future, judging our friends, complaining about our lives, blaming our parents, not believing in ourselves, and insisting on being chronically unhappy, just to name a few. Often we only appear to be awake. You woke. Since the body becomes the subconscious mind, it's easy to see that in situations when the body becomes the mind, the conscious mind no longer has much to do with our behavior. The instant we have a thought, feeling, or reaction, the body runs on automatic pilot. We go unconscious. Take, for example, a mother driving a minivan to drop her kids off to school. How is she able to navigate traffic, break up arguments, drink her coffee, shift gears, and help her son blow his nose all at once? Much like a computer program, these actions have become automatic functions that could run very fluidly and easily. Mom's body is skillfully doing everything because it has memorized how to do all these deeds. Excuse me. Okay, it does that like about an hour in. It'd be like, there's no activity. What you mean no activity? I know I'm speaking clear and intelligent enough. But they like the computer. I'm gonna stop right here. I love it'd be funny when the computer be glitching because they like wait a minute, wait a minute. We're confused here. She's a bit ghetto, super intelligent, spiritual. We don't have a lot of data on an individual like this right here. We're gonna glitch. There's no activity. How is no activity? I've seen people, I ain't get too far off the subject, but I've seen people on TikTok literally sleeping. Like put on the live and go to sleep. It'd be hundreds of people in there. Now I don't know what the other 100 peoples be doing. I got ideas. But I don't know for sure what can be entertaining about watching somebody sleep. I don't know. But I've seen it with my eyes here in those TikTok streets. I don't know why TikTok act like I ain't no activity over here because I'm sitting here reading. But obviously there's activity here. Me reading. I will get back to the book. Where I leave off at? Mom. Talk about mom, right? Okay. Mom's body is skillfully doing everything because it has memorized how to do all these deeds through much repetition. She no longer has any conscious thought about how she does them. They are habitual. Think about that. 5% of the mind is conscious, struggling against the 95% that is running subconscious automatic programs. We've memorized a set of behaviors so well that we have become an automatic habitual mind-body, habitual body-mind, same difference. In fact, when the body has memorized a thought, action, or feeling to the extent that the body is the mind, when the mind and body are one, we are in a state of being the memory of ourselves. I'm going to start the whole paragraph again. Think about that. 5% of the mind is conscious. 5%, people. So what the heck is in your subconscious? And that's why I have been tirelessly, because I ain't tired doing it, reprogramming my subconscious. So if you see me being different, it's on purpose. I'm going to continue to be different. I'm going to continue to reprogram my subconscious to be expecting the best of the best, okay? Because that's what I'm intending. That's what I'm doing. The best of the best. But later, let's get back to the book. Think about that. 5% of the mind is conscious, and sometimes it's struggling against the 95% that is running subconscious automatic programs. So my goal is to be 100% whole. WHOLE. Wholly myself, where my subconscious and my conscious are in alignment with each other. So my subconscious is saying the same thing. I'm beautiful, I'm worthy, I'm loved, I'm fantastic, I'm successful. Ooh, look at all of these things. Look at how I'm growing. Look at this success. Look at how I'm giving. Look at how I'm sharing. Look at how my life is so beautiful. Look at, oh, there's so many different examples of how it is so beautiful and how it is so easy and how it is so lovely. Like, you know, I've even created my own video. I did affirmations before, but I created a private affirming video that I can play as I sleep, because that's how you change your subconscious, people. You change your subconscious by putting on repetition. It could be something that you're watching repeatedly or listening to, or something that you play as you sleep. Because if you're playing something as you sleep, that's the easiest, quickest way to reprogram your subconscious. I'm gonna get back to the book though. And I'm gonna start that paragraph again. Think about that. 5% of the mind is conscious, struggling against the 95% that is running subconscious automatic programs. We humans memorize a set of behaviors so well that we have become an automatic habitual body mind. In fact, when the body has memorized a thought, action, or feeling to the extent that the body is the mind, when mind and body are one, we are in a state of being, the memory of ourselves. And if 95% of who we are by age 35 is a set of involuntary programs, memorized behaviors, and habitual emotional reactions, it follows that 95% of our day we are unconscious. We only appear to be awake. Yikes. So a person may consciously want to be happy, healthy, or free, but the experience of hosting 20 years of suffering and the repeated cycling of those chemicals of pain and pity have subconsciously conditioned the body to be in a habitual state. We live by habit when we're no longer aware of what we're thinking, doing, or feeling. We become unconscious. The greatest habit we must break is the habit of being our old selves. We want to be something new, we want to have new experiences, then we got to change ourselves in order to actually have new experiences, in order to actually have a new life. It starts with self and not just the outside of self. Because you can join a gym and you can start putting the right stuff in your body. But if you still in your mind are thinking about all the years of the sufferings and the habitual responses that you've had to situations and all of the situations that you have experienced in your past, if that is in the back of your mind, you can dress up the outside as much as you want to. You still ain't gonna have a different life. You're just gonna look different. When the body is running the show, here are some practical illustrations of the body being in a habitual state. Have you ever been unable to consciously remember a phone number? Try as you may, you can't even recall 3 digits out of the string of numbers required to make the call. And yet, you could pick up the phone and watch as your fingers dial the number. Your conscious thinking brain can't remember the number, but you've practiced this action so many times. It happens with me and my passwords all the time. You practice this action so many times with your fingers that your body knows and remembers better than your brain. That example was for those of us who grew up before speed dial or cell phones came along. Perhaps you have the same experience with typing your PIN into an ATM or entering a password online. Similarly, I can recall times when I worked out at a gym and had a locker with a combination lock. I was so tired after the workout that I couldn't remember the combination. I'd stare at that dial trying to recall the sequence of 3 numbers and they would not surface. However, when I started to twirl the dial, the combination would come back to me almost as if by magic. Again, this happens because we've practiced something so many times that our bodies know better than our conscious minds. The body subconsciously has become the mind. Remember that 95% of who we are by age 35 sits in the same subconscious memory system in which the body automatically runs a programmed set of behaviors and emotional reactions. In other words, the body is running the show. When the servant becomes the master, it's about to get interesting now. In truth, the body is the servant of the mind. It follows that if the body has become the mind, the servant has become the master. And the former master, the conscious mind, has gone to sleep. The mind might think it's still in charge, but the body is influencing decisions equal to its memorized emotions. Now, let's say the mind wants to get back in control. What do you think the body's going to say? Where have you been? Go back to sleep. I got it together here. You don't have the will, the persistence, or the awareness to do what I've been doing all this time while you were unconsciously following my orders. I even modified my receptor sites over the years in order to serve you better. You thought you were running things while I have been influencing you all along and urging you to make all your decisions equal to what feels right and familiar. And when the 5% that is conscious is going against 95% that is running subconscious automatic programs, the 95% is so reflective that it only takes one stray thought or a single stimulus from the environment to turn on the automatic program again. Then we're back to the same old, thinking the same thoughts, performing the same actions, but expecting something different to happen in our lives. When we try to regain control, that is when the body signals the brain to begin talking us out of our conscious goals. Our internal chatter comes up with a battery of reasons why we should not attempt to do anything out of the ordinary, not break out of the habituated state of being that we're used to. It will pick up all of our weaknesses, which it knows and fosters, and hurl them at us one by one. We create worst case scenarios in our minds so that we don't have to rise above those familiar feelings. Because when we try to break the internal chemical order we have made so second nature, the body goes into chaos. Its internal badgering feels nearly irresistible, and plenty of times we succumb. Enter into the subconscious to change it. The subconscious mind only knows what you have programmed it to do. Have you ever been typing along on your laptop and all of a sudden your computer starts running automatic programs that you have no control over? When you try to use the conscious mind to stop the automatic subconscious program stored in your body, it's like yelling at the computer that has gone rogue, with several programs running while windows are popping up and showing more than you can handle. Hey, stop that. The computer isn't even going to register that. It's going to keep doing what it does until there is some sort of intervention, until you get into its operating system and change some settings. In this book, you will learn how to get into the subconscious and reprogram it with a new set of strategies. In effect, you have to deprogram or unwire your old thinking and feeling patterns and then reprogram or rewire your brain with new patterns of thinking and feeling based on who you want to be instead. When you condition the body with a new mind, the two can no longer work in opposition, but must be in harmony. This is the point of change, of self creation. Guilty until proven innocent. Let's use a real life situation to illustrate what happens when we decide to break from some memorized emotional state and change our minds. I think we all relate to one common state of being guilt. So I'm going to use that to illustrate in practical terms how this cycle of thinking and feeling works against us. Then we'll identify some of the efforts the brain body system is going to make to remain in control and preserve that negative state of being. Imagine that you feel guilty about one thing or another. If something goes wrong in a relationship, a simple miscommunication, someone unreasonably misplacing his or her anger on you, or whatever, you wind up taking the blame and feeling bad. Picture yourself as one of those people who repeatedly say or think it was my fault. They talk about me. I feel like they about to talk about me. Let me drink some water before they talk about me. I'll be like, I'm just taking responsibility for my actions. And it was not all your fault, girl. It was not all your fault. Anyway, let's get back to the book. After 20 years of doing this to yourself, you feel guilty and think guilty thoughts automatically. You have created an environment of guilt for yourself. Other factors have contributed to this, but for now, let's stay with this notion of how your thinking and feeling have created your state of being and your environment. Every time you think a guilty thought, you've signaled your body to produce the specific chemicals that make up the feelings of guilt. You've done this so often that your cells are swimming in a sea of guilt chemicals. Ooh, that sounds nasty. The receptor sites or your cells adapt so that they can better take in and process this particular chemical expression, that of guilt. The enormous amount of guilt bathing the cells begin to feel normal to them. And eventually, when the body perceives as normal starts to be interpreted as pleasurable. It's like living for years near an airport. You get so used to the noise that you no longer hear it consciously, or living in the hood where you hear ambulances all the goddamn on time. Surprised we haven't heard one in the daggone broadcast, or maybe we have and I just didn't notice it. The same thing happens to your cells. As a result, they literally become desensitized to the chemical feeling of guilt. They will require a stronger, more powerful emotion from you, a higher threshold of stimuli to turn on the next time. And when that stronger hit of guilt chemicals get the body attention, your cells perk up at that stimulation, much like the first cup of Java feels to a coffee drinker. And when each cell divides at the end of its life and makes a daughter cell, the receptor sites on the outside of the new cell will require a higher threshold of guilt to turn them on. Now, the body demands a stronger emotional rush of feeling bad in order to feel alive. You become addicted to guilt by your own doing. When anything goes wrong or is awry in your life, you automatically assume you're the guilty party. But that seems normal to you now. You don't even have to think about feeling guilty. You are just that way. Not only is your mind not conscious of how you express your guilty state by the way of the things you say and do, your body wants to feel its accustomed level of guilt because that's what you have trained it to do. You have become unconsciously guilty most of the time. Your body has become the mind of guilt. Only when, say, a friend points out that you need to have apologized to the store clerk for giving you the wrong change, do you realize how pervasive this aspect of your personality has become. Let's say that this triggers one of those moments of enlightenment, an epiphany, and you think, she's right. Why do I apologize all the time? Why do I take responsibility for everyone else's missteps? After you reflect on your history of constantly pleading guilty, you say to yourself, today I'm going to stop blaming myself and making excuses for other people's bad behavior. I am going to change. Because of your decision, you're no longer going to think the same thoughts that produce the same feelings and vice versa. And if you falter, you've made a deal with yourself that you're going to stop and remember your intention. 2 hours go by and you feel really good about yourself. You think, wow, this is actually working. Unfortunately, your body cells aren't feeling so good. Over the years, you've trained them to demand more molecules of emotion, guilt in this case, in order to fulfill their chemical needs. You have trained your body to live as a memorized chemical continuity. But now you're interrupting that, denying it its chemical need, and going contrary to its subconscious programs. The body becomes addicted to guilt or any emotion in the same way that it would get addicted to drugs. At first, you only need a little of the emotion drug in order to feel it. When your body becomes desensitized and your cells require more and more of it just to feel the same again. Trying to change your emotional pattern is like going through drug withdrawal. Once your cells are no longer getting the usual signals from the brain about feeling guilty, They begin to express concern. Before, the body and the mind were working together to produce this state of being called guilt. Now, you are no longer thinking and feeling and thinking in the same way. Your intention is to produce more positive thoughts, but the body is still all revved up to produce feelings of guilt based on guilty thoughts. Think of this as a kind of highly specialized assembly line. Your brain has programmed the body to expect one part that will fit into this larger assembly. All of a sudden, you've seen another part that doesn't fit into the space where the old guilty part once did. An alarm goes off and the whole operation comes to a standstill. Your cells are always spying on what is happening in the brain and the mind. Your body is the best mind reader ever. So they all stop what they're doing, look up towards the brain, and think, what are you doing up there? You insisted on being guilty, and we loyally following your commands for years. We subconsciously memorized the program of guilt from your repetitive thoughts and feelings. We charged our receptor sites to reflect your mind, modified our chemistry so that you could automatically feel guilty. We had maintained your internal chemical order independent of any external circumstances in your life. We are so used to the same chemical order that your new state of being feels uncomfortable, unfamiliar. We want the familiar, the predictable, and what feels natural. All of a sudden you're going to change? We can't have that. So the cells huddle up and they say, let's send a protest message to the brain. But we have to be sneaky because we want her to think that she's actually responsible for those thoughts. We don't want her to know they came from us. So now the cells send a message marked urgent right up the spinal cord to the surface of the thinking brain. I call that the fast track because the message goes straight up the central nervous system in a matter of seconds. At the same time this is happening, the chemistry of the body, the chemistry of guilt, is now at a lower level because you're not thinking and feeling the same way. But this drop does not go unnoticed. A thermostat in the brain called the hypothalamus also sends out an alarm that says chemical values are going down, we gotta make some more. So the hypothalamus signals the thinking brain to revert back to its old habitual ways. This is the slow track because it takes longer for the chemicals to circulate through the bloodstream. The body wants you to return to your memorized chemical self, so it influences you to think in familiar routine ways. So it activates the corresponding networks of neurons that have fired and wired for years, which are equal to the mind of that feeling. These fast track and slow track cellular responses occur simultaneously, and the next thing you know, you start to hear the chatter of thoughts like these in your head. You're too tired today. You can start tomorrow. Tomorrow's a better day. Really, you can do it later. And my favorite, this doesn't feel right. If that doesn't work, a second sneak attack occurs. The body mind wants to be in control again, so it starts picking on you a bit. It's okay for you to feel a little bad right now. It's your father's fault. Don't you feel bad about what you did in the past. In fact, let's take a look at your past so we can remember why you are this way. Look at you. You're a mess. You're a loser. You're pathetic. You're weak. Your life is a failure. You'll never change. You're too much like your mother. Why don't you just quit? As you continue this awfulizing, the body is tempting the mind to return to the state it has unconsciously memorized. On a rational level, that is absurd. But obviously, on some level, it feels good to feel bad. The moment we listen to those sub-vocalizations, believe those thoughts, and respond by feeling the same familiar feelings, mental amnesia sets in and we forget our original aim. The funny thing is that we actually begin to believe what the body is telling the brain to say to us. We emit ourselves back into that automatic program and return to being our old self. Most of us can relate to this little scenario. It's no different from any habit we've tried to break, whether we're addicted to cigarettes, chocolate, alcohol, shopping, gambling, or biting our nails. The moments we cease the habitual action, chaos rages between the body and mind. The thoughts we embrace are intimately identified with the feelings of what it would be like to experience the indulgence. When we give in to the cravings, we will keep producing the same outcomes in our lives because the mind and body are in opposition. Our thoughts and feelings are working against each other, and if the body has become the mind, we will also fall prey to how we feel. As long as we use familiar feelings as a barometer, as feeding back on our efforts to change, we'll always talk ourselves out of new possibilities. We will never be able to think greater than our internal environment. We will never be able to see a world of possible outcomes other than the negative ones from our past. Our thoughts and feelings have that much power over us. Help is only a thought away. The next step in breaking the habit of being ourselves is understanding how important it is to get the mind and body working together to break the chemical continuity of our guilty, ashamed, angry, depressed state of being. Resisting the body's demand to restore that old unhealthy order isn't easy, but help is only a thought away. You will learn in the following pages that is for true changes to occur. It is essential to unmemorize an emotion that has become part of your personality and then to recondition the body to a new mind. It's easy to feel hopeless when we realize that the chemistry of our emotions are habituated. Our bodies to a state of being that is too often a product of anger, jealousy, resentment, sadness, and so forth. After all, I've said that these programs, these propensities are programmed in our subconscious. The good news is that we can become consciously aware of these tendencies. I'll deal more with this concept in the pages ahead. For now, I hope you can accept that to change your personality, you need to change your state of being, which is intimately connected to feelings that you have memorized. Just as negative emotions can become embedded in the operating systems of your subconscious, so can positive ones. By itself, conscious positive thinking cannot overcome subconscious negative feelings. At one time or another, we're all consciously declared, I want to be happy. But until the body is instructed otherwise, it's going to continue expressing those programs of guilt, sadness, or anxiety. The conscious intellectual mind may reason that it wants joy, but the body has been programmed to feel otherwise for years. We stand on a soapbox proclaiming change to be in our best interest, but on a visceral level, we can't seem to bring up the feeling of true happiness. That's because mind and body aren't working together. The conscious mind wants one thing, but the body wants another. If you've been devoted to feeling negatively for years, those feelings have created an automatic state of being. We could say that you are subconsciously unhappy, right? Your body has been conditioned to be negative. It knows how to be unhappy better than your conscious mind knows otherwise. You don't even have to think about how to be negative. You just know that's how you are. How can your conscious mind control this attitude in the subconscious body mind? Some maintain that positive thinking is the answer. I want to be clear. By itself, positive thinking never works. Many so-called positive thinkers have felt negative most of their lives, and now they're trying to think positively. They are in a polarized state in which they are trying to think one way in order to override how they feel inside of them. So you got to reprogram your subconscious so that you feel better. You can't just think better. You got to think better and feel better. They consciously think one way, but they are being the opposite. When the mind and body are in opposition, change will never happen. Memorized feelings limit us to recreate the past. By definition, emotions are the end products of past experiences in our life. When you are in the midst of an experience, the brain receives vital information from the external environment through five different sensory pathways: sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch. As those cumulative sensory data reaches as that cumulative sensory data reaches the brain and is processed, networks of neurons arrange themselves into specific patterns reflecting the external event. The moment those nerve cells string into place, the brain releases chemicals. Those chemicals are called an emotion or feeling. In this book, I use the word feelings and emotions interchangeably because they are close enough for our understanding. When those emotions begin to chemically flood your body, you detect a change in your internal order. You're thinking and feeling differently than you were moments before. Naturally, when you notice this change in your internal state, you'll pay attention to whoever or whatever in your external environment caused that change. When you can identify whatever it was in your outer world that caused your internal change, that event and of itself is called the memory. Neurologically and chemically, you encode that environmental information into your brain and body. Lord have mercy. Thus, you can remember experiences better because you recall how they felt at the time they happened. Feelings and emotions are a chemical record of past experiences. For example, your boss arrives for your performance review. You know You notice immediately that he looks red faced, even irritated. As he starts speaking in a loud voice, you smell garlic on his breath. He accuses you of undermining him in front of other employees and says he has passed you over for a promotion. In this moment, you feel jittery, weak in the knees, and queasy, and your heart is racing. You feel fearful, betrayed, and angry. All of the cumulative sensory information, everything you're smelling, seeing, feeling, and hearing, is changing your internal state. You associate that external experience with a change in how you're feeling internally, and it brands you emotionally. You go home and repeatedly review this experience in your mind. Every time you do, you remind yourself of the accusing, intimidating look on your employer's face, how he yelled at you, what he said, and even how he smelled. When you once again feel fearful and angry, you produce the same chemistry in your brain and body as if the performance review is still happening. Because your body believes it's experiencing the same event again and again. You are conditioning it to live in the past. Let's reason this a bit further. Think of your body as the unconscious mind or as an objective servant that takes orders from your consciousness. It is so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the emotions that are created from experiences in your external world and those that you fabricate in your internal world by thought alone. To the body, they're both the same. Mm. What if this cycle of thinking and feeling that you were betrayed continues for years on end? If you keep dwelling on that experience with your boss or reliving those familiar feelings day in and day out, you continually signal your body with chemical feelings that it associates with the past. This chemical continuity fools the body into believing that it's still re-experiencing the past. So the body keeps reliving the same emotional experience. When your memorized thoughts and feelings constantly force your body to be in the past, we could say that the body becomes the memory of the past. If those memorized feelings of betrayal have been driving your thoughts for years, then your body has been living in the past 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. In time, your body is anchored in the past. You know that when you repeatedly recreate the same emotions until you cannot think any greater than how you feel, Your feelings are now the means of your thinking. And since your feelings are a record of a previous or of previous experiences, you're thinking in the past. And by quantum law, you create more of the past. Bottom line, most of us live in the past and resist living in a new future. Why? The body is so habituated to memorize the chemical records of our past experiences that it grows attached to these emotions. In a very real sense, we become addicted to those familiar feelings. So when we want to look to the future and dream of new vistas and bold landscapes in our not too distant reality, the body, whose currency is feelings, resists the sudden change in direction. Accomplishing this about face is the great labor of personal change. So many people struggle to create a new destiny, but find themselves unable to overcome the past memory of who they feel they are. Even if we crave unknown adventures and dreams of new possibilities ahead in the future, we seem to be compelled to revisit the past. Feelings and emotions are not bad. They are the end products of experience. But if we always relive the same ones, we cannot embrace any new experiences. Have you known people who always seem to talk about the good old days? What they really saying is nothing new is happening in my life to stimulate my feelings. Therefore, I have to reaffirm myself from some glorious moments in the past. If we believe that our thoughts have something to do with our destiny, then as creators, most of us only going in circles. Get some more water. So far, in discussing how the quantum model of reality relates to change, I spent most of the time talking about our emotions, the brain, and the body. We've seen that overcoming the reoccurring thoughts and feelings that the body memorizes is a must if we are to break the habit of being ourselves. Another major aspect of breaking this habit has to do with our physical health. Certainly, in the hierarchy of things that most of us want to change about our lives, health issues rank way up there. And when it comes to what we like to change about our health, there is one set of dogmas that we're going to have to examine and dispel. The myth that genes create disease and the fallacy of genetic determinism. We will also look at a scientific understanding that may be new to you, called epigenetics, the control of genes from outside the cell, or more precisely, the study of changes in gene function that occurs within a change in DNA sequence. Just as we can create new experiences for ourselves, like my daughter did, we can also gain control of a very important part of our lives, what we commonly think as of our genetic destiny. As we go along, you will see that knowing something about your genes and what signals them to be expressed or not is crucial to understanding why you have to change from the inside out. Scientific dictum used to declare that our genes were responsible for most diseases. Then, a couple of decades ago, the scientific community casually mentioned that they have been in error. A lot of us didn't get that memo, but I'm giving it to you now. And announced that the environment, by activating or deactivating particular genes, is the most causative factor in producing disease. We now know that less than 5% of all diseases today stem from single gene disorders, whereas about 95% of all illnesses are related to lifestyle choices, chronic stress, and toxic factors in the environment. Yet, factors in the outer environment are only part of the picture, which explains why two people can be exposed to the same toxic environmental conditions for years and one gets sick or disease while the other doesn't. How is it that when someone has multiple personality disorder, one personality can demonstrate a severe allergy to something while another personality in that same body can be immune to the same pathogen or stimulus? Why, when most healthcare providers are exposed to pathogens or on a daily basis, aren't doctors and others in the medical community continually ill? There are also numerous case studies documenting identical twins who share the same genes, who have had very different experiences when it comes to their health and longevity. For example, if both shared a family history of a particular disease, that illness often manifests in one twin but not the other. Same genes, different outcomes? In all these cases, could the person who remains healthy have such a coherent, balanced, vital internal order that even when his or her body is exposed to some hazardous environmental condition, the external world does nothing to his or her gene expression? And so, does it signal the genes to create disease? It's true that the external environment influences our internal environment. However, by changing our internal state of being, can we overcome the effects of a stressful or toxic environment so that certain genes do not become activated? We may not be able to control all the conditions in our external environment, but we certainly have a choice in controlling our inner environment. Genes, memories of the past environment. To explain how we can control our inner environment, I need to talk a bit about the nature of genes, which are expressed in the body when cells manufacture specific proteins, the building blocks of life. The body is a protein producing factory. Muscle cells make muscle proteins, which are called actin and myosin. Skin cells make skin proteins called collagen and elastin. Stomach cells make stomach proteins called enzymes. Most of the cells of the body makes proteins, and genes are the way we make them. We express particular genes via certain cells making particular proteins. The way most organisms adapt to conditions in their environment is through gradual genetic modifications. For example, when an organism is faced with tough environmental conditions such as temperature extremes, dangerous predators, fast prey, destructive winds, strong currents, and so on, it is forced to overcome the adverse aspects of its world in order to survive. As organisms record those experiences and the wiring in their brains and the emotions in their bodies, they will change over time. If lions are chasing prey that can outrun them, then by actively engaging the same experience for generations, they will develop longer legs, sharper teeth, or bigger hearts. All of these changes are the result of genes making proteins that modify the body to adapt to its environment. Let's stay with the animal world to look at how this works in terms of adaptation or evolution. A hypothetical group of mammals migrate to an environment in which the temperatures range from negative 15 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The genes in those mammals, over many generations of living under extremely cold conditions, would eventually be triggered to produce a new protein, which would produce thicker and greater amount of fur, hair and fur proteins. Numerous insect species have evolved the ability to camouflage themselves. Some that live in trees or other foliage have adapted to look like twigs or thorns, enabling them to escape the notice of birds. The chameleon is probably the best known of the camouflagers, and it owes its color changing abilities to the genetic expression of proteins. In these processes, genes encode the conditions of the external world. That's evolution, right? Epigenetics suggests that we can signal our genes to rewrite our future. Our genes are as changeable as our brains. The latest research in genetics show that different genes are activated at different times. They're always in flux and being influenced. There are experience-dependent genes that are activated when there is growth, healing, or learning. And there are behavioral state-dependent genes that are influenced during stress, emotional arousal, or dreaming. One of the most active areas of research today is epigenetics, the study of how the environment controls gene activity. I feel like I'm in a study right now. They're like, oh my God, she has real psychic abilities. She knows we're watching. She knows we're watching. We are studying you, Miss Bay. Hey, all eyes on me. Why don't we spice up the study and, add another study so you already have you could see. Maybe bump it and grind. Let me stop. We get back to the book. Focus, focus, focus. I'm just saying. You take the top of the top and you put the top of the top together, you just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. Let's see. You might need to do that. You might need to help me help you, because I'm here to help you. I know we here to help you. That's why I like him so much. He here to help you. I'm here to help you. We can help y'all together better. I'm just saying. He's doing a lot. I'm doing some too. But together. Let me get back to this book. Epigenetics flies in the face of the conventional genetic model, which states that DNA controls all of life and that all gene expression takes place inside the cell. This old understanding doomed us to a predictable future in which our destiny fell prey to our genetic inheritance. And all cellular life was predetermined like an automatic ghost in the machine. In fact, epigenetic changes in DNA expression can be passed on to future generations. But how do they get passed on if the DNA code stays the same? While a scientific explanation is beyond the scope of this book, we can use an analogy. Let's compare a genetic sequence to a blueprint. Imagine that you start with a blueprint for a house and scan it into your computer. Then, using Photoshop, you can alter its appearance on the screen, changing a number of the characteristics without changing the blueprint. For example, you could change the expression of variables such as color, size, scale, dimensions, materials, and so on. Thousands of people representing environmental variables can produce different images, but they would all be expressions of the same blueprint. Epigenetics empowers us to think about change more profoundly. The epigenetic paradigm shift gives us free will to activate our own gene activity and modify our genetic destiny for the sake of example and simplification. When I talk about activating a gene by expressing it in different ways, I'll refer to turning it on. In reality, genes don't turn on or off. They're activated by chemical signals, and they express themselves in specific ways by making various proteins. Just by changing our thoughts, feelings, emotional reaction, and behaviors. For example, making healthier lifestyle choices. With regard to nutrition and stress level, we send ourselves new signals. They express new proteins without changing the genetic blueprint. So while the DNA code stays the same, once a cell is activated in a new way by new information, the cell can create thousands of variations of the same gene. We can signal our genes to rewrite our future. Perpetuating old states of being sets us up for an undesirable genetic destiny. Just as certain areas of the brain are hardwired, whereas other areas are more plastic, able to be changed by learning and experiences, I believe genes are the same way. There are certain parts of our genetics that are more easily turned on, while other genetic sequences are somewhat more hardwired, which means they're harder to activate because they have been around longer in our genetic history. At least that's what science says right now. How do we keep certain genes turned on and others turned off? If we stay in the same toxic state of anger, the same melancholy state of depression, the same vigilant state of anxiety, or the same low state of unworthiness, those redundant chemical signals we have talked about keep pushing the same genetic buttons, which ultimately cause the activation of certain diseases. Stressful emotions, as you will learn, actually pull the genetic trigger, dysregulating the cells. Dysregulation refers to impairment of a physiological regulatory mechanism and creating diseases. When we think and feel in the same way for most of our lives and memorize familiar states of being, our internal chemical state keeps activating the same genes, meaning that we keep making the same proteins. But the body cannot adapt to these repeated demands and it begins to break down. If we do that for 10 or 20 years, the genes begin to wear out and they start making cheaper proteins. What do I mean? Think about what happens when we age. Our skin begins to sag because its collagen and elastin come to be made of cheaper proteins. What happens to our muscles? They atrophy. Well, no surprise there. Actin and myosin are proteins. Here's an analogy. When a metal part of your car is manufactured, it's produced to die or a mold. Each time that mold or dye is used, it is subjected to different forces, including heat and friction, which begins to wear it down. As you may guess, car parts are built to very close tolerances, referring to the permitted variation in a workpiece's dimensions. Over time, that dye or mold wears to the point that it produces parts that won't fit properly to other parts. That is similarly what happens to the body. As a result of stress or a habit of being repeatedly and consistently angry, fearful, sad, and so on, the DNA that the peptides use to produce proteins will start to malfunction. What is the genetic impact if we stay in routine, familiar conditions, creating the same emotional reactions by doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, seeing the same people, and memorizing our lives into a predictable pattern? We are now headed for an undesirable genetic destiny. We are locked into the same patterns as generations before us, which confronted the same or similar situations. And if we are only reliving our emotional memories of the past, then we are headed for a predictable end. Our bodies will begin to create the same genetic conditions that previous generations faced. Thus, the body will stay the same as long as we are feeling the same way day in and day out. And if science tells us that it is the environment that signals the genes involved in evolution, what if our environment never changes? What if we've memorized the same conditions in our outer world and we're living by the same thoughts and behaviors and feelings? What if everything in our lives stays the same? You just learned that the external environment chemically signals genes through the emotions of an experience. So if the experiences in your life aren't changing, the chemical signals going to your genes aren't changing. No new information from the outer world is reaching your cells. The quantum model asserts that we can signal the body emotionally and begin to alter a chain of genetic events without first having any actual physical experience that correlates to that emotion. We don't need to win the race, the lottery, or the promotion before we experience the emotions of those events. Remember, we can create an emotion by thought alone. We can experience joy or gratitude ahead of the environment to such an extent that the body begins to believe that it's already in that event. As a result, we can signal our genes to make new proteins to change our bodies to be ahead of the present environment. Can elevated states of mind produce healthier expressions of genes? Here's an example of how we can signal new genes in new ways. We begin to emotionally embrace an event in the future before it is made manifest. In Japan, a study was conducted to find out what effect one's state of mind might have on disease. The subjects were two groups of patients with type 2 diabetes, all of whom were dependent on insulin. Keep in mind that most diabetic medicate with insulin to remove sugar out of the bloodstream and deposit it into the cells where it can be used for energy. At the time of this study, the people involved were being treated with insulin pills or injections to help control their elevated blood sugar levels. Each group had their fasting blood sugar level tested to establish a baseline. Next, one set of subjects watched a comedy show for an hour, while the control group watched a boring lecture. The test subjects then ate a delicious meal, after which their blood glucose levels were checked again. There was a significant discrepancy between the subjects who enjoyed the comedy show and those who viewed the uneventful lecture. On average, those who watched the lecture had their blood sugar levels rise 123 milligrams, high enough that they would need to take insulin to keep themselves out of the danger zone. And the joyful group, who had laughed for 1 hour, their after dinner blood sugar values rose about half that amount, slightly outside of the normal range. Initially, the researchers who performed the experiment thought that the lighthearted subjects had lowered their sugar levels by contracting their abdominal and diaphragm muscles when they laugh. They reasoned that when a muscle contracts, it uses energy, and circulating energy is glucose. But the research went further. They examined the gene sequence of the jovial individuals and discovered that those diabetics had altered 23 different gene expressions just by laughing at the comedy show they've seen. I'm going to pause right there and take a gulp of this water. Before, I had the scientific proof of the power of laughter, I utilized it. You want to know how? Instinctively, it came to me. Before, I had never had no idea of this. I didn't read this before. I'm reading it after. I'm reading it after I have applied it. So after I have genetically modified myself, not even consciously or knowingly, just following my instincts of, let me watch this funny thing. And doing that repetitively, I was modifying and preparing myself for this very moment right here, right now. And it assisted me in getting through the various challenges that I got through. The grief, the extreme grief, like not just light grief, like, oh, not saying when a pet passes it's light, but it's completely different when a child that you've carried inside of your body has passed. That's different. That's a level of grief that I don't even know how to put into words, but it's deep. It is deeper than your own parents because you love your parents, but some part of yourself expect your parents to go before you. But when, as a mother, I can imagine that a father also has a similar grief. But as a mother, it's different. And people be like, whoa. And I'd be like, whoa, too. Like, shit. You don't know how the fuck I did? But now, I was modifying my freaking genetics. People didn't even know I was modifying my genetics just by choosing to watch something that made me feel better at the moment, which happened to be comedy. Kudos to Kevin Hart and The Rock and all you wonderful freaking comedians. Okay? Kudos to y'all. Kudos to y'all. Kudos to Takara Williams. The comedian. Oh my God. I can't make this stuff up. Y'all think I can't make it up. Woo. Let's keep going. Their elevated state of mind apparently triggered their brains to create new signals in their cells, which turned on those genetic variations that allow their bodies to naturally begin to regulate the genes responsible to blood sugar. Our emotions can turn on some gene sequences and turn off others. This study clearly showed. Just by signaling the body with a new emotion, the laughing subjects altered their internal chemistry to change the expression of their genes. Sometimes a change in genetic expression can be sudden and dramatic. Have you ever heard of people after being subjected to extremely stressful conditions whose hair turned gray overnight? This is an example of genes at work. They experience such a strong emotional reaction that their altered body chemistry both turned on the genes for the expression of gray hair and shut off the genetic expression for their normal hair color. Within a matter of hours, they signal new genes in new ways by emotionally and thus chemically altering their internal environment. As I discussed in the last chapter, when you've experienced an event numerous times by mentally rehearsing every aspect of it in your mind, you feel what that event would feel like before it unfolds. Then as you change the circulatory in your brain by thinking in new ways, and you embrace the emotions of an event ahead of its physical manifestation, it is possible that you can change your body genetically. Can you pick a potential from the quantum field? Every potential already exists, by the way. And emotionally embrace a future event before the actual experience. Can you do this so many times that you emotionally condition the body to a new mind, thus signaling new genes in new ways? If you can, it is highly possible that you will begin to shape and mold your brain and body into a new expression so that they physically change before the desired potential reality is made manifest. Changing your body. Why lift a finger? We may believe that we can change our brains by thinking, but what effects, if any, will this have on the body? Through the simple process of mentally rehearsing an activity, we can derive great benefits without lifting a finger. Here's an example of how that literally happens. As described in an article in the 1992 Journal of Neurophysiological Physiology Neurophysiology Neurophysiology Neurophysiology. Subjects were divided into three groups. So you neuroscientists been knowing this stuff. I'm gonna just keep going. 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 The first group was asked to exercise by contracting and relaxing one finger on their left hand for 5 1-hour training sessions per week for 4 weeks. The second group mentally rehearsed the same exercises on the same timetable. I read a similar study about people playing the piano. Let's go back. The first group was asked to exercise by contracting and relaxing one finger on their left hand for 5 1-hour training sessions per week for 4 weeks. The second group mentally rehearsed the same exercises on the same timetable without physically activating any muscles in the body, in the finger. People in the control group exercised neither their fingers nor their minds. At the end of the study, the scientists compared the findings. The first set of participants had their finger strength tested against the control group, a no-brainer, right? The group who did the actual exercises exhibited 30% greater finger strength than those in the control group. We all know that if we repeatedly put a load on a muscle, we will increase the strength of that muscle. What we probably wouldn't anticipate is that the group who mentally rehearsed the exercises demonstrated a 22% increase in muscle strength. The mind then produced a quantifiable physical effect on the body. In other words, the body changed without having an actual physical experience. Just as researchers have worked, that was in 1992. Just as researchers have worked with test subjects who mentally rehearsed finger exercises and others who imagined playing piano scales. Told you I read something about the piano scales. Another study. Experiments have compared practical experience versus mental rehearsals for individuals doing bicep curls. The results were the same. Whether the participants physically performed bicep curls or mentally rehearsed those activities, they all increased their bicep strength. The mental exercises, though, demonstrated physiological changes without ever having the physical experience. Oh, we about to fix these motherfucking legs. We about to. I'm telling you, 90 days. I'm gonna do physical work. Now, I ain't saying I'm not gonna do the physical work. I'm gonna do the physical work, but I'm gonna also be doing the mental work, like every day, every day. So it's going to just compound the freaking results. Something that probably would have took me, I don't know, 6 months to a year to achieve. I'm achieving it in 30 days. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Hair wants to be on rapid. Let's get the body on rapid too. Let's do it. Let's do it. Y'all watching? I'm about to get y'all a real motherfucking show. Y'all about to get a real motherfucking show in real time with a sister good muscles. They like, ooh. And I mean, we already started. We already started. I see my orthopedic. I'm gonna get back to this book. I see my orthopedic, and I was like, I will be back. I think I think I said 3 months. I'll be back in 3 months. But I think I'm gonna check in monthly with them. I gotta see. They'll call me and remind me. I'm trying to be like not getting up like but get up like boop bop boop bop boop bop boop bop boop bop boop bop. That part. Let's keep on going. Now. Let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. What? Whew. Okay. When the body has changed physically, biologically to look like an experience has happened just by thought or mental efforts alone, then from a quantum perspective, this offers evidence that the event has already transpired in our reality. If the brain upgrades its hardware to look like the experience physically occurred and the body is changed genetically or biologically, it is showing evidence that it has happened, and both are different without our doing anything in 3 dimensions. Then the event has occurred both in the quantum world of consciousness and in the world of physical reality. When you have thoughtfully rehearsed a future reality until your brain has physically changed to look like it has the experience, and you have emotionally embraced a new intention so many times that your body is altered to reflect that it has had the experience, hang on, because this is the moment the event finds you. And it will arrive in a way that you least expect, which leaves no doubt that it came from your relationship to a greater consciousness, so that it inspires you to do it again and again. Don't be sleeping on Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm gonna just say it like that. We have finally reached the end of that chapter. We're gonna go into chapter 4. This was a 2-hour podcast, people. 2 hours. 2 hours. We're going into chapter 4 next Sunday, Soulful Sundays, through 3 p.m. Oh wait. I had to stutter there because there are some events that are going on next Sunday. Next Sunday is Baba Haru's life celebration, which I'm deeply considering being in attendance to. There might be another time that we broadcast next week. I will update you at least 24 hours before next Sunday. But thank you for tuning into the SupaTea Podcast Show. I know you got something valuable because this is valuable stuff right here. You know, it's valuable. And I am honored to be able to share it here on this platform. And I'm excited about the evolution of all this stuff because, like, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. All good stuff is happening. And this good stuff is just going to continue to inspire more goodness. So, you know, I know there are other things that you watch, that you listen to, that can stir up those negative emotions. My goal is to stir and motivate those other chemical reactions of joy and of peace, and so that you started, you know, knowing we all got access to bigger consciousness. So, which people like to call God, I like to sometimes call divinity. Those powers that actually keep the planet that we all occupy on suspended in what looks like thin air. There's energy that's keeping Earth from not clashing into Mars, okay? And those intelligent energies are available for you and me, okay? So I'm encouraging you to study further into the subject, but also trust your intuition too, because as I just shared with you guys, I was recalibrating my chemical makeup without even being conscious of it. Just intuitively having a feeling, oh, let me watch this. Oh, this made me feel better. Let me watch more of it. I was literally recalibrating my cells. I'm excited. Now I'm conscious of it. And I'm like, oh, I got some areas to focus on, baby. Improve and heal this body, yada, 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 your mind. So I'm just grateful to be sharing my life experience with the world. And the more I am better and better me, the more better and better I am able to serve from my overflow you all. So thank you for tuning in to the Super Tea Podcast Show. Be great, be you, and stay tuned.